Samya, I guess we should start the event.
We should. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are safe and healthy. I'm Samya.
And I'm Shivani, and we are your hosts for the evening.
So, okay, Shivani, you know what today's event is about, right?
Yeah, I know. I guess it's about placements, right?
Yes, it is. And before I get into the details of it, I wanted to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
What do you think are the difficulties people face in the placements, like in general?
Honestly, I guess getting placed in a good company has always been a tough job. So, but due to this pandemic, it got even worse. Like, these days the companies aren't just looking for like good grades and like bright students, but they're looking for someone with a wholesome personality who's willing to do their task and even go extra lengths with them and do something innovative.
Absolutely. And like you said, a wholesome personality. I can't agree with that enough. I mean, when we think about placements, it's always about, being technically sound and being technically really good. But that's not what it is just about, right? Like you need to know how to talk to people, how to present yourself, how to attract a crowd, and basically how to have the right attitude to work. That all adds to an individual. And most of the students, especially us, and I guess including you and I as well, don't know much about it. We don't have much exposure in that manner, which is why I want to have our HOD of us, our Dr. Dipali Vora ma'am, to say a few words regarding this. Ma'am,
Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to come to this particular event. I'll just, all of you already know about the ITSA, but I would just like to introduce the ITSA committee. So it is Information Technology Students Association. As the name suggests, it is a committee by the students for doing so many technical activities in the institute. So it will give all the students of IT exposure to managing, creating the technical events and taking them to the highest level as much as possible. So it will give them a management, you can say, exposure to all the committee members of the ITSA. And they are doing lots of activities, good activities under the guidance of Professor Rohit Barve. So that's all about ITSA. Today I am very happy to welcome our guest, Mr. Debjit, who is an HRBP at Amazon. Earlier, he has worked as an HRBP at Mahindra and Tata. He has done his MBA from Acceleri Jamshedpur, which is one of the leading business schools in India. And he will not only talk about how the pandemic has affected the placement, but also about what is required to be an ideal candidate. So his words of wisdom will definitely help all our students to come out of this pandemic and get a good, what you can say, exposure to the placements. So I welcome Debjit and I would like him to continue with his session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your encouraging and kind words, which we really appreciate it. So, Samya, should we get this event started? Why don't you say the instructions for it?
we totally should. I cannot wait to get insights from our speaker, Mr. Debjit Bose, sir, and know the secrets to having a successful placement thing. And just being the ones who stand out from the rest and not being the one who get rejected. So yeah, we should totally get it started. But before that, this one is to the audience. If you have any questions regarding anything, just post it in the chat box. And once the speaking part is done, we'll have an exclusive questionnaire session where all of your questions will be answered. And after that, a feedback form will be floated. And once you fill the feedback form, you all will get the e-certificates for this event in your mail. And on that note, I hope you all have an exciting, inspiring, and empowering day. Thank you. And I request Mr. Debjit Bose sir to take over. Thank you so much.
Hello, sir. Actually, your mic is on mute.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I am very thankful to the team at ITSA at VIT, the organizers for actually welcoming me and having this opportunity to share my thoughts to everyone. I understand fully that what is the situation you are in. I myself was an engineer. I was in your place 7 years back. I was preparing for my placements in 2013. So I am definitely thankful for everyone participating, for taking time out on a Sunday evening. And that kind of puts that responsibility to me, that how important this is for all of you. Quickly, I think Dr. Vora has introduced me. I'll just go once again very briefly about myself before we start into the presentation as such. I had in 2009, enrolled in an engineering degree. 2013 is the year where I passed out from a kind of a similar kind of an institute which was affiliated to West Bengal University of Technology. I spent 2 years in Tata Consultancy Services as a database manager engineer. So I spent 2 years over there, and then I completed my MBA, and then I worked extensively in 3 years in Mahindra in both its automotive and farm sector, and now it's been like 6 months where I'm in Amazon. Let's move, and then I'll quickly share my screen so that I can share the presentation with all of you. So okay, so I will just wait for the presentation to show up, and then I'll start. Can someone confirm to me whether it's visible? Can just Okay, I think it is right now. Fine.
Yes, sir, it
Okay.
is.
Yeah, fine. So I will spend almost like an hour or so in going through the content of what I'm going to speak about, so that the message that I want to clearly send out to help you prepare for the placements and also beyond, to be successful in a corporate life, in your professional environment. Uh, and then I want to spend most of the time in answering your questions. So I'm sure that at this cusp of your time, when you are almost preparing for your placements, there would be a lot of apprehensions given the circumstances around.
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I would just want to just give me a heads up if, because I won't be able to hear myself. I've kept myself on the YouTube channel on mute. So just give me a heads up if there is an audio issue. I hope it is clear right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So what where I was getting into is that I would like to finish this particular piece of my messaging to be in a crisp and precise manner. I mean, little quickly, so that the maximum amount of time is spent on answering your questions, because I'm sure that during these times around, you will have a lot of apprehensions and questions, and I would like to spend most of the time trying to address that. So then let's head to the session plan today. So since I come from Amazon, though I do not represent the company formally right now at this particular session, but I would like to spend some time on trying to help you understand how the business model of operations or a logistic business works. And for an engineer like you, what are the areas or roles that can be available for you, or that you can actually try to get into for. Okay. Then I would like to spend some time on what is the current crisis, at what lens you have to look at the current crisis, in general, what happens in a crisis and how the industry reacts to it. Then I would like to spend a little more time on on certain things that are going to help, that are going to be helpful for you if you want to be successful in the corporate life, and how you should realign your goals so that it is flexible enough and is able to overcome every challenge that comes across. The fourth is, I heard a lot about the anchors also talking about a wholesome personality. What are the corporates that are looking into it, whether technical knowledge is enough or not. Now this term of wholesome personality is very vague, and it is very difficult for a student who is at your age to try to understand, and what does it actually mean. I mean, what is that? I mean, so I would like to shed some light on it at the end of it. I would like to put some method to this madness, and I would like to tell you that what exactly does this personality thing means, what exactly, how we evaluate your CVs, how we evaluate a student, and how a corporate typically does that fitment of someone, whether he is fit for that particular role or not. So how that particular thing is done is something that I'm going to spend a lot of time on. That will be the end 15-20 minutes, and then we will open it up for further questions. Okay, so far so good. uh, S- Samia, shall we move ahead? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Fine. So let's first understand what does a logistic industry does. Okay. Uh, I will have a couple of slides on it, and I would like to explain to you what does it actually happen. So there are certain pipes. It's a very high level diagram. It doesn't actually capture all the sorts of work that happens in an e-commerce industry or a logistics industry or an operations industry as such. But it's about, see, it's about optimizing your entire value chain or a supply chain of transferring anything that you want to collect from a particular source and give it to the customer. Now what happens is, in an unlike a pure logistics company or a courier company as such, which is probably your DHFL or anything, your Gati or something like that, where the role of a hub or a big warehouse is very limited, because it is a demand based response. So the demand of customers who want to transport certain goods is already there with them, and they just try to match that demand of transferring something from one place to another. What happens typically in e-commerce and e-commerce industries like Amazon or Flipkart is that that demand has to be estimated. So you have to estimate in Diwali how many people are going to order one plus, or whether they are going to at all order one plus or not. So that sort of an estimation, and then keeping things inside a hub, which is typically your warehouses, is a very important aspect to it. So here what happens is, why I have given you the concept of a hub, spoke, and a logistic transport is, typically you will see roles in these three areas. So the whole job of an operations or an e-commerce industry is to optimize the time and the cost of transferring the materials from a source to a customer. So if I give you an example, for instance, suppose the sellers of a garment industry is in Delhi. So you, if you order certain clothes or something from Mintra or somewhere else, the the cluster of industries can be in Delhi. But if the number of customers in Mumbai is less, they will probably store the things in a warehouse at Delhi and just transfer it to you. If the customer clusters in Mumbai is high, they will keep some inventory in a Mumbai. So that sort of an estimation is something that is important. So the roles typically for an engineer that can happen in these areas are inside the hub or the warehouse, the kind of inventory management, the kind of where to store how what is the load arrival pattern, how the things are going to come inside your warehouse, how are you going to place it. The operational management of that is going to be some sort of a role which is going to happen inside the hub. The interaction between the source and the hub, which is typically, if you see the top kernel of the source and the hub, is seller management. That is a field in which there is a lot of scope for the IT individuals to actually optimize that relationship. And the third is your logistics of transport. That is completely when the good is out on road, which is in the package, which is outside the role. So there could be certain roles or responsibilities or certain areas where there could be some requirement of engineers. Now if I just move move on, just summarizing what I have said is there could be some sort of roles in the under the roof or warehouse management in which there is the whole responsibility of increasing the faster turnaround time of goods coming in and coming out. So that's the operations management. There could be certain role on safety engineers, especially mechanical engineers for the safety and infrastructural development inside. There could be some process development or program management of the entire thing, introducing new technologies. What sort of scanning tools needs to be there? How are you going to process the goods? So those kind of things are something that can have an impact on the IT engineers. Next, moving on to business development, as I said, that there are a lot of seller partners with which Amazon or Flipkart or any other company, any other e-commerce company works. So there has to be a good relationship with those partners. Okay, there has to be a good distribution system with this partner. So that is something that we have in the role of a business development. So that is somewhere you would typically hire MBAs or maybe some people who have a little bit of management exposure after engineering is something that they can get into. So that is a kind of role that you can get into after a couple of years of experience in the other operational areas. Other than that, Amazon has a huge cloud data services management, data management. So a lot of IT tech enablement that is required to actually support the business is again something that you can get into. There is something interesting that many companies will actually do the design of the packages in house, so that that is optimum. There the cost is also optimum and it is sustainable. So you can also get into package designing. So there are various courses on package designing. So a good mechanical engineer with an interest in that may get into an area of a design team, of package designing team. Okay. And of course there are a lot of areas for computer science, because here it's the whole IT enablement piece that is important, that supports the entire. So it's every step is tracked, every good is tracked. So there is a huge amount of scope for in the transportation business also for the IT engineers. So that's the overall summary of the logistic industry and the kind of scope, the kind of roles that engineers can actually happen over here, right? Uh, Now I would make a drastic change from here. So this is what I wanted to give a little bit of an overview of what kind of roles may be available for you in an industry like Amazon or Flipkart or somewhere else. And after that exposure, I'm just shifting gears here. Now it is going to be a sudden shift of gears, so just hold on to it. So I am going to move now to the fact that what is that current crisis that is going to that is coming here. Okay. uh, and how do we respond to that crisis? So I'm just moving the topic over here to what is it. So see, this is what happened in COVID is a kind of a crisis, right? uh, Before that also, like I can relate to some sort of it, though it was a little bit of quite different in nature. So if I go back to 2008, 2009 is when I entered engineering. So a lot of us had that apprehension. 2008 is the time when the global financial crisis hit badly globally, right? The banking industry almost collapsed globally, and since a lot of IT companies actually support uh, uh, oversized and global companies and banking and finance is the biggest client of IT industry. So if you know about it, it's still one of the biggest revenue generating event for IT industry. It was also a big hit. So we also had to deliberate a lot in 2009 whether engineering is the right stream, should we join or not. Now therefore it is important to understand what a crisis does, and then I will talk a little bit of economics here. So here, if you look at newspapers and a fair bit of an idea of how it is, a crisis creates two kinds of shocks in the market. Uh, it's generally a demand shock supplied by a supply shock, or it starts with a supply shock followed by a demand shock. Now let me just briefly explain to you what does it actually mean. So if we look at the COVID situation, so what happened in COVID is that in general people didn't go out because of the virus pervading uh, across the country, across the world. Safety concerns, people didn't go out. When people didn't go out, what happens is, and also coupled with the lockdown and restrictions that happened, it posed a huge amount of problem in the supply chain. So the consumers who wanted certain things or goods did not get because there is a disruption in the supply chain. Now, if it started with that, but it didn't end with that. And the crisis is, as it unfolds, we can see further things out of it. So see, what happens is, with this supply chain getting broken, and with a kind of a delayed lockdown, a lot of people lost jobs. A lot of people didn't have money to buy items outside. So it leads to a general decline in uh, general decline in the purchasing power of people. So as it creates a general decline in the purchasing power of people, it because of lack of opportunities, the companies will not produce that much. And as the company doesn't produce that much, because they are not able to sell that much, is that they are also going to start the supply. So this is a vicious cycle which goes on. So because the purchasing power reduces, the companies also start producing less, and therefore it goes into that endless cycle or loop in which the entire so as you I do not know how much exposure of economics you have, but as the market settles in a situation where the entire demand and supply of the economy is little lesser than what it is. So that's how it is. Similar to that, it has happened in 2008 also, because of the financial bubble. It started with actually a supply shock because people didn't have money or credit, so firms did not look into it. Now let me just get into certain things. So we tend to forget that sometimes we get into a kind of a hindsight error mode. So if you look at a lot of funny videos are made. If you look at that AIB's video of every engineer in the third year, second year has that dilemma that I should have probably taken BCom, or I should have probably taken a course in a Bachelor of Arts. Probably I was not suited in that. So that happens because and also now many people right now will say that the lockdown was not the right decision by the government. See, a lot of things, what happens is, if you go to once you have seen the future, you have the luxury of seeing the future, and therefore in the past you are saying that I should have done this, I should have done that, and that is it is very easy to criticize a past decision based on the future you have already seen. But unfortunately, when the decision has to be made, so when you passed out class 12th, at that time you took engineering given the circumstances of that time, right? So it is not something that we should get out of it. uh, and we should look at the future with more positivity. So let's look at the possible green shots. Okay, so what are the areas that you can look into? So good news is, for most of the employees, for most of the students who are in computer science, IT industry is still fairly stable. That is because a lot of there are two things why it is going to be stable. It is likely to remain stable in the future. The first thing is, a lot of services in IT can be delivered online. You do not need a physical movement of goods and people to actually deliver the services. Yeah. So what is that? So that means, unlike manufacturing, where you need people to come to the factory to actually develop goods and all, and that poses a challenge when there is lockdown and when there are health issues, when people are dying of COVID. IT is fortunately shielded with that. So since I believe still in the scenario, it's IT which is the biggest employer of engineers, you should be relieved that it is mostly stable. Second reason why IT infrastructure services and the overall cloud management services is going to improve in future is that people are going to uh, the firms will want to optimize their value chain. What it means is, they will try to get maximum value out of their money. And how do you do that? By investing in data services, by trying to analyze the data that you have across the market, so that the investment is very correct, the investment is gives the right return. So digital marketing services, uh, machine learning, right? So all these things, all these tools are there to have better investment will actually help better investment and through automation, other things, better investment of services given by the industry. And that is going to only increase, because anyway the firms will have lesser money, so they would want better investment out of that money. And hence, to do that, it is imperative that they continue to invest in automation, they continue to invest in machine learning, data services management, so that they get better insights out of this data. So fortunately, those two things are going to remain the same. The third essential things you have to say that because of this, what is going to happen is, big ticket items like cars, houses is something that is going to decrease in the long run. In the short term, you can expect a little bit of improvement in the in the selling of personal cars, because people would want to emphasize safety over public transport. Therefore, they will buy cars, but that only a certain amount of section of people who are already in the middle class, upper middle class strata, they can be afford to do that. Once that demand is over, since overall there is a lack of demand in the market, the economy is little bit of a sliding, you can expect that to flatten out. So that's just a short term phenomena that will happen. In the long run, what you can see, low cost essential items like what Amazon sells, Flipkart sells, those things are going to remain the same. So those industries, what you can see when you will be probably evaluating companies, if you see that the companies are catering to low cost items, who are delivering low cost items, producing low cost items, and which are essential items which people would still need. So that is still a safer place to be in, right? So that is still a safer place to be in. And it's always a good time, people, it's a common wisdom that people say that when the economy is not good, you can always invest in education, because by that you invest in developing your skills, and at the same time you wait till the market improves. So both the things happen. But of course, I understand that for everybody that is not going to be an option. People may have invested considerably in resources and time to have this degree out, and therefore to say that now you should invest in education is something that is not possible for everyone. So fully cognizant of the fact, and therefore I just want to make a passing remark on it and not emphasize on it. So then is something that I'm going to move on uh, to something that you can do, or some sort of rewiring of yourselves in order to better manage this crisis, or better come out very much successful out of this crisis. Okay, so let us understand what does that mean. So what is this diagram of three level of goals mean? It looks really complicated, right? So let me just uh, let me just ask you to do an exercise. Okay, so I'm, of course, this is not a very interactive I mean, not a situation. See, ideally I would have loved to visit your campus, and that is the ideal way to do it. But since this is the new normal, we have to adjust to this normal and deliver it over an online medium. So it's almost like I'm speaking to a blank screen. So I do not know what is your reaction, and how you're feeling about it. So it's much better if it's done physically, but that's how it is. So we are going to, so I want you guys to do a little bit of an exercise mentally, and maybe write it down in a piece of paper or something. That if you are looking at a particular goal, right, that I want to work, for example, Tata's consulting services, digital services, or I want to work in a mechanical firm. So uh, that's the goal. You should keep asking yourself why do you want to do this, and then why you want to do digital services. So if I have to go back, then I would say why I wanted to do an MBA is I wanted to be in a situation in 4 to 5 years where I have a decision making power over of a company, and I can I can decide policies in that company. So what happens is, once you ask too many whys, you will come up with a very 10 words or fewer, an abstract meaning of what you want to do in your life. So or what is the exact goal in your life. Now to uh, so that is something that is at a top level goal, that should be very much fixed, firm. You should be you should be married to it, that's how it is. But to achieve that goal, there are various middle level and low level goals, right? So for instance, working in a particular company or targeting a particular company is a low level goal. I'm sure that nobody would have a goal ki you have to work only in this particular company, or like that you have to work only into a TCS digital services company, right? That's not a goal will not have. You will probably have an overview of an idea that I want to enter VIT, get financial kind of situation, right, or design product, something like that. Therefore, what happens in a crisis, what I understand, a lot of people have these issues, especially in these times, right? That one second, that what will I do? Uh, companies will my favorite company will probably not come in the campus. What will I do if I get rejected from a particular company? Or what will I do? Physical classes are not happening. I'm not getting into the right college. So all these, what I want to say is that, are low level goals. So lower level goals can be scrapped, can be modified, can be changed in times of crisis, in times of different situations where it may not happen, as long as your high level goal is fixed. So try to figure that out. That what is the high level goal that you want, and therefore what are the different ways to actually achieve that. It is possible fairly that one. It's not going to be like, if you do not work for a particular company, if you do not get into a particular company, your high level goal is not going to be achieved. It is not going to happen like that. So that's an exercise I would like you to do in these situations, and therefore that will also help you to uh, lead through this time very well. Okay. Okay. So moving on, there are certain things that uh, I want to actually I want to talk about. Okay, and that is, I think this is the correct time where I need to talk about it. So I will quickly, go through it. I will not spend too much time on it. As I said, that I would spend more time on answering your questions or your apprehensions. Okay. Uh, see, one thing is, you need a couple of very good qualities in order to be successful in any corporate life, or anything that after you get into a job. See, you may have a lot of potential in you, but there are four very interesting practices that you want to go through it. I will share this particular slide so that uh, I do not go through all this text right now. I will just focus on two things. Okay. See, one is, you need curiosity, passion, and perseverance. All these three things together, if you are to become a successful professional in future. And I have specifically mentioned there, not novelty seeking, right? So this particular, so what we have seen tremendously in freshers when we interview, or when we have asked onboarded them in companies, today you want to do something else, tomorrow you would feel, I would have probably started my own company, a day after tomorrow you may have a feeling that I should have got into sports or something. Try to understand that, unlike a college life where every semester has a different subjects, every semester has a different way of life, corporate life or work life is quite the opposite of it. It's very boring. I mean, it's going to be like more like a sports where Sachin Tendulkar comes to the field, and for the 15 or 20 years, he is going to just play cricket. He's just going to play, and most of it he's just going to bat. Similarly, you will do probably the same thing again and again over many years. So it is not going to be like, today I'm going to play hockey, tomorrow I'm going to play football, then after tomorrow I'll play cricket, and combining the three together, I'm going to get an average marks out of it, and then I will be decided whether I pass or fail. That is not how it works when you're actually inside work. So the more important part to it is to understand that a life after college is no longer about passing the exams or getting grades like that. It is all about getting feedback. So you will never succeed, you will never fail. So you will never you will only get feedback. So you will only get feedback, and you have to work on that feedback to improve your performance. So that's how it works. It is, we are not going to give a grade. We will not come to you and say you have passed this today, tomorrow you have not passed it, or I'll not come to Rajkumar and said you've passed or you've failed. It is not going to happen like that. You're going to keep getting feedback, and it is on to you how you improve it. So there are certain steps on what successful people do. What is about deliberate practice, I think I'll share it with you, and the organizing team can share with all of you, and then you can go through it in your free time. Not wasting three, four more times, I'll just quickly again I'll share it with you. So it is, I will quickly tell an example of learning a bicycle so that you understand how you learn in a company. So it's not about getting to know about a subject and then just passing it out. So that's also something that is not. So there are four stages of learning. So one, suppose you first you imagine when you're first learning how to learning the bicycle, so art of bicycling. Okay, so the first stage is what we call an unconscious incompetence. Okay, so that is, you do not know that you don't know how to ride. You feel that, what is it, I'll just take a bicycle, hop onto it and run. because you don't know, you have not done it. Then what happens is when you first hop into a bicycle, you fail and you fall down. That's where we called it conscious incompetence. That is when you know that you don't know about it, that you know that you fail, you don't know a particular thing. So that is similar to your, I think, any campus placements interviews or something. So you may not be knowing certain aspects of your weaknesses, but when your faculty members, when your mock interviews, or when even in a company person tells you that this is your, you come to know consciously that this is your area of incompetence. Then you practice, just like you practice bicycles, you try to practice every aspect of it: speeding up, coming down, putting up the brake, hopping up, hopping down. So all these factors are something that you consciously practice to develop that competence. So that is what we call a conscious competence. And then what happens is, once that conscious competence becomes a practice, a daily life, you become, now you can do it effortless. So that's unconscious competence. So that's how you learn every aspect of things when you enter into a corporate life. Now let me just briefly talk about, I will share a lot of stories. In fact, I had a there is an engineering institute called Father Conceição Rodriguez, or Father Agnes in Dubai. I have a lot of friends who are doctors studying you can you can also invite them if you want. I can share the contacts in the organizing committee. One important aspect that I want to talk about right now before I move on to the actually the placement practices is that uh, students tend to get bogged down when they don't probably crack a particular entrance exam, or they are not able to crack the first company that comes into campus, right? So I'll just talk about it. I will share a link. It happens because of 5 reasons, okay? That every human being get hit when they fail because it affects their status. And that's how your brain tricks you. You feel that your status has come down, and despite the fact that you know that better companies can come later, there are fantastic hundreds of examples where somebody has not started the career in from the right frame of the company, have been successful. You still shut of that, and you feel bogged down because of these 3 4 reasons. That life becomes uncertain. First of all, you do not, certainty is not there. Human beings always like certainty. You get a sense of being unfair, that why my friend is getting, I should be in that place. So sense of fairness gets affected. So because of these 4 5 reasons, as this has been mentioned, is something that you tend to bog down. And you know that, there are, I'll share some examples. So I had one of my friends who couldn't crack any of the IT companies that started. Then he got into a startup which was based out of Calcutta, and then he is now in Singapore, and is one of the assistant vice presidents in technology in one of the very big companies in technological server companies. So those examples are always there. So but you tend to miss that, hindsight, and you get bogged down. So I would let's like to help you understand that you guess see you get bogged down because your brain tricks with you. It plays a game with you. It tells you that your status has come down, where your life is going to get uncertain. It's not in your control anymore. Don't fall into that trap. And I think if you remember these examples, you would always try to get the feedback. So again, as I wrote in the top line, okay, get feedback about what can be improved, but never think whether because there is nothing called a success or failure. Nobody is successful, nobody is a failure. So if you calculate, so again I would, if you take the example of a cricket example, again you've probably heard of it thousands of times, but I'll just repeat uh, for the sake of more clarity. If you calculate the batting average of any batsman, any famous batsman, take Sachin Tendulkar for example, you would see that in 70% of the times he has probably scored less than 50 runs or 40 runs in a one day cricket or something like that. And only in that 30 or 20% of times when he has scored 150s or 120s, and that takes the average to somewhere around 45 50. So will you say that Sachin Tendulkar has a failure because in 70% of time he has not scored? You will not say that. So that is what it's all about. So every phase of it, there is nothing again called a success or failure. It's all about feedback. You only take feedback to improve. And it is, if you do not reach somewhere in the first year, you will reach in the second year. So that's where the long term goals are important. So it is not necessary that every short term goal has to be achieved in order to reach the long term goal. right? So please do remember that when the times are going to come right now. Now let me just, okay. So the most important two slides that are most important over here uh, is what I'm going to talk about right now. Okay, try to understand what happens in an interview. Okay, so and then it will help you to prepare for it. Okay, so let me understand first is every company will like to have a job person fitment. So they have a job description in them with them. They have certain essential characteristics that they look for a person in that particular job, which will likely to be make them more successful. And in an interview or a selection process is a process in which they try to get the best match out of it. So, for example, if I am looking for an operations manager or warehouse, I would like to be, I know that functionally, so the left hand side is something that functional skills are mentioned, and the right hand side is something which is a bit of a behavior, personality characteristics, as you are being called about, is mentioned. So, I would want somebody who is good in mechanical engineering or operations as such, and I would want someone with a very good aptitude in mathematical or quick calculations on the feet kind of a person. Okay, and then I would also want that person to be able to influence others, so he should be a good communicator, of course, that he should be able to negotiate better. Now these are the characteristics that I would want in that particular person. Now what happens is that proxies, or there are various proxies to get an estimate of how is that person likely to be. So try to understand why this a process of a stakeholder of selection process looks little untransparent, little unfair. It's because it's a prediction game. You never know whether a person is going to be successful in a particular role or not for certain. However experience you may have, however long career in interviewing you may have, you will never be able to predict, because that's human nature. So predicting the future with the help of human characteristics is very difficult, and that's why this process everybody feels that it's unfair. But I'll just tell you what the process is. There is a challenge, there is a possibility that in this process there are certain biases that come out for the other person. So for example, if he feels that okay, mathematics score is 60 out of 100, that means he is not good in aptitude. Possibly in a warehouse management system, it is probably probably I would say unitary methods or faster calculations is the only mathematical skill you want. He may be good in that, but the interviewer will make an impression with the score in the maths marks that okay, he's not probably good in math. So that's an error or a bias that comes into. So this process is prone to a lot of errors and bias, and that's why it looks a little non-transparent. So let me tell you still what happens is, if I know that what I'm looking for is someone who is very good in aptitude or mathematics or you know or a mechanical engineering skill, I would like to look at the marks of that particular person in those subjects and make an impression. Then I would like to see the CV and say, okay, if he had been a class leader, or had it been a someone who has been a prefect, or had he organized an event, that means he has taken a lot of people together. He must have influenced a lot of people to actually get that successful. So I get to see those things with the lens of the job successful requirement that I have in the CV, and that's how I shortlist. Now, once I shortlist, I will come to GD in the next slide. So I will just talk about the interview. There are two kinds of interviews that happen. So please listen to this part very carefully and even take notes if you want. If you want, one of the most important ways an interview is taken is what they call a behavioral events interview, which is called a BEI. Okay, and uh, in this BEI, what happens is whenever you are presenting an answer, so it is not, so this is outside the purview of technical questions. So technical question can be like you, whether you know, you will be asked to write a code, you will be able to write or something. So that's a different thing. Overall, when you are being having a little bit of a what you call an HR or an overall, when you are asked about what is your biggest achievement in life, or what do you think you have done great in the past, give an example or like that. Even when you are summarizing the project, so for example in the third year or second year internship project which you do, when you are summarizing that and presenting to the interviewer, please remember this framework in mind, that there are four things in which you should present your answer. So the first thing is or situation or task. Sometimes both these things are clubbed, but situation or task means what was their problem statement. So for example, you are having a library management system in place. What was the task that you were set out to do? What was the situation? So I'm taking a very layman example. So I have been an engineer. It's almost like 7 years have passed. So suppose you kind of write a library management software system. So what it means, so you have to explain that what is the task that you are set out to, that any person would be able to come and click an answer. So you explain the user interface, or what you call in software language the software requirement specification. So if you have to write a 3 line 5 line of what a software requirement specification would be, so that is what your situation or task is. So that was your objective, so you have to always go through the objective. Then once you explain the objective very well, when you explain the situation and task pretty well, you then go to actions. So these are the 4 5 things I did. First, I looked at the other similar codes that are available. Then I converted the requirements in smaller blocks. Then I finalized that if you have to do those blocks, what are the kinds of classes it will have, or what kind of smaller codes that it will have. So you have to explain step by step how you went around solving that problem. That step is what you call actions. And then finally the result. So result is when you summarize what happened out of that. So it is any unique feature it had, or something that is. So when you are explaining about any contest you have done, or you have organized something, how it went, what was the feedback, so what was the outcome of it. So that is how you frame the answer. See, you know all of these things. I mean, you probably unconsciously do it, but please do remember that an interviewer is trying to always understand through this lens. So they usually note down their notes. When they make notes, they will say, okay, when you're explaining, they will say in actions he did 3 things, in results he did this is what happened. So they are probably making notes in this. I'm just giving you a reverse prism over here, how they calculate and how they actually look at it. Second thing is, always remember where you are applying, what is the role, and what is the kind of company. So, for instance, there would be some characteristic differences between what works in a Tata and what works in a Wipro, for example. So, just speak to some of your seniors who are there and try to understand. And remember that possibly certain red flags will be there. For example, in Tata, if you say anything which is partially, you know, uh, lurking around anything which is unethical, you are straight out. So however good your functional skill is, however good is it, it's straight away out. So please look at the kind of role, what characteristics are likely to be more successful in that role, what characteristics are likely to be more successful in that company, and prepare answers accordingly. So please make sure that these are the top 2 things that they're looking at. So they have a role in mind, they have a company role in mind, they have 3 4 characteristics. You have to guess what could be near to those characteristics. So they are looking at those 4 skills. If you do not speak about them in the interview, they have basically they will make a note that there is no evidence that that person is good in aptitude or mathematics. So you know, when a computer science engineer, probably a little bit of problem solving skills, a coding skill is important. You have to showcase that in an interview within that particular time frame in mind. So I'm sure that you will have a lot of questions in this, and that's when I'm going to be more elaborate. And otherwise, it will become like a monologue. So I'm just to move ahead. Now let me. This is a very interesting thing. Okay, uh, GD is a very dicey situations, and there is a lot of misconception about how you can crack GD. See, 10 15 years back, when probably our elder brothers were preparing for GDs and all, it used to about reading a lot of newspapers, where they used to read newspaper, note down, because information was something that was very inaccessible at that point of time. Today, I would say, if you are into the right, if you're not gossiping around much in social media, you're not wasting much time in Facebook and Instagram, and you have some sort of an idea, looking at the news channel, speaking to others, you already have a lot of information. So GD nowadays is not about. So remember, I'm telling it from a personal experience. I have never failed in a GD. I have never, there has not been one occasion where I was rejected in GD, even in after engineering company campuses, in MBAs, or even in the companies when they are coming for MBA recruitment. And believe me, it is much lot tougher than actually engineering placements. So it's about thinking on the feet. There is a lot of misconception that GD can be cracked by reading a lot of stuff, or GD, a group discussion, can be cracked solely by your strength of knowledge. That is not going to happen, because there are two things that are important to crack a GD. One is thinking on your feet. Your knowledge is going to be limited. The GD will throw up a random topic like anything. Like I had a topic in which they said that culture eats strategy in the breakfast or something like that. Very weird kind of topics that is going to come out. So your all knowledge is going to go out on road. I mean, it's going to be on the toss. Okay, so it is not the right way to crack a GD. What happens is you should actually take any random topics and think inside your home whether you can speak about it with your existing knowledge. Don't try to read much on it. Just see how you can connect your existing knowledge to that topic. So for instance, when certain things like so for example, I'll just give you a couple of examples on this, that so if I know about, so on a topic like culture eats strategy on the breakfast, I don't understand that topic, but I heard these two words, culture and strategy. Maybe I can speak something about that. So I just talk about something, what is strategy, I just define what is culture, and then I define how one is more important. I get a sense, right, that it typically wants to compare whether culture is above strategy or strategy is above culture, and just try to correlate with that. So you should rather practice to crack GD by taking any random topic and try to speak about it with your existing knowledge, because GD is a test of your thinking on the feet, number one, and number two, trying to find that opportunity to speak. So when is the other person coming down and you speak? So that is number one skill that is required. The second skill is thinking on the feet. You cannot crack GD by having more knowledge. That is not a test of your knowledge. It is a test of trying to connect the topic with your existing knowledge. So that's I think that is what is. I think I will be more questions on this. I will, uh, I will talk about it more. So I think I'm more or less done on this. Whatever I wanted to present. Sure, I have told the organizing committee that I will be sharing this. So therefore, okay. So we can open the forum for questions.
So that was truly enlightening. I'm sure everyone in the audience loved it just as much as I did. From the looks of it, we have quite a good set of questions, and we can start with the questionnaire session anytime right now.
Yeah, we can start. Yes, I'm ready.
So our first question is by Dave Patil. I have so many goals and ambitions, but little to no motivation to accomplish them. I feel like there's something innately wrong with me. How can I fix it?
Okay. Sure. So I'll just go back to the slide once more. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. You will look at this particular four things in that order: interest, practice, purpose, and hope. Okay. So I have not actually spent much time on this particular slide, so I will probably take this question as a as a forum to actually elaborate on that. So what's his name? Dave, right? So Dave, you may have an interest, okay, on a particular thing, okay. Uh, that is what you are thinking as your ambition. There is an interest, okay. What, that is not enough. So having an interest or that having a goal in life is not enough to actually pursue on it. So what is the missing piece is practice, purpose, and hope. So for example, especially practice. So for example, so I will just first spend a little more time on a combination of curiosity and passion, is what is written in the second line. Is that, see, what happens is, when there is a child who is at the age of maybe 5 or 6, that child wants to uh, first tries, just try understanding. Okay, let's try singing. Okay, then let's try some sports. That is okay at that stage of life, because a person needs to explore different things to understand, okay, this is where I can now fix my interest on, because a lot of time is required to match that interest with the person's ability. So that is okay at that time. After that point, novelty seeking is a very detrimental creature. So having multiple goals and ambitions is a very detrimental thing to have. So remember, if Sachin Tendulkar comes and says, okay, I feel like playing football today, I feel like playing hockey tomorrow, and the third day I would want to play cricket, that's not how it works at an age when you are already in an engineering course or something. So what is important is to have that interest, then couple it with practice, a lot of practice, and that's the boring part. So you may have heard Chetan Bhagat also speaking about that. It's not like he once in a life suddenly he felt, okay, now I'm going to write a novel and sits like that. No, it requires a lot of practice. A singer, practices every day, and that's the boring part. So what is happening is goals and ambitions, but no motivation. It's happening because goals and ambitions are itself not enough to make you successful in that particular area. You have to feel that whether practicing that thing day in and day out is something that you really want to do. So that's where passion and perseverance has to be there. You have to have take feedback. So then read the 3 4 lines that I've said. You have to do that every day. Try to find out where you are lacking in that particular thing. What is not that there you need improvement. That's how leaders are successful. It is not something I have written from my experience. This is I have taken start from a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth. You can actually take a note of that book. You can buy it if you want. It's a book by a famous psychologist whose name is Angela Duckworth. The book is Grit. She has taken extensive interviews and trying to find the pattern of successful leaders. The successful leaders deliberately try to find faults among themselves in the area of interest they have, and they try to improve on it. They look for negative feedback. So that is the level of practice that is required to actually convert that interest into something fruitful. So that would
That
be
is really
my answer to the best of my knowledge. Okay.
that was really helpful, sir. Next question is by John Wayne, who is actually from Boston. Um, he says, "What risk we have to take in a startup founder role? I have my own startup of software consultancy. Please give me some tips or something I have to apply in real life."
Okay, so John, I think if you look at my credentials overall, I have been an HR business partner in some established companies. I do not have much of an experience in startups, so I will not be able to answer, very accurately this particular question. But of course, looking not deviating from this topic is the same thing I would like to repeat, is that. Uh, in order to control the uncertainties of the startup, it's important that you don't lose interest in the overall goal. So if your overall goal or the higher level goal is something that is to make the startup successful, I think the short term goals are something that you may have to change. So you may have one particular investor in line, and if you don't get funding from that particular investor, I would say you still have to keep that higher level goal in mind, and then go on it. So that's the only thing that I would like to give from this particular session. Other things, I am not, this is not the right, I think, forum to actually answer that.
Okay, sir. So basically, you are saying that he should keep persevering, right?
Correct.
So we can have the next question. The next question is by Shahid Mandal. What major differences you experienced when you switched from service-based company to product-based company?
Okay. um, okay, so let me just talk about certain things. So one is the timing of the company. So timing in the sense, at what points of time these kind of companies have evolved. So the product based companies, for instance, I have worked in Mahindra as such. Those are pretty old. Those are independence era companies. They have designed. So you will typically find certain practices which are pretty old in the system. They are not modernized. The technology would be little slow. As a result of the legacy, they will be having a lot of legacy systems like that. Whereas, and the pace of work, you may experience that the pace of work or decision making is slow. You may experience that people are not very good in terms of using technology. They are little averse towards technology. Whereas a service based company, by the nature that it has to provide the best services to its client, will be very fast in responsiveness. The pace of work will be very fast. You will see that technologically they are better. The workforce will be a little more younger, of course, than product based company. Here I believe I'm using the assumption that by products you do not mean IT products as such. If I have to take that in, the difference between an IT service based company and IT product based company, then of course an IT product based company will have a lot of innovation. There will be a lot of scope of developmental work where you may be employed as a developer, whereas a service based industry is more of a support, having incremental changes in software coding in order to get more clients. So that's how it will be. A product based company will have a little bigger gestation period. So you may be your projects will be longer. You will be in a 1 year 2 years kind of a project. A service industry, you will projects will be shorter. You will have to do a faster turnaround time. There will be a lot software based, enhancements based kind of a work. So I think that would be the difference between working in these two kind of companies.
Well, I hope Shahid, your question got answered. We can have the next question. It's by Siddharth Shukla. What type of an individual does an IT company prefer more? An adequate communicative person with average technical skills, or a person with very low communication skills but high technical knowledge? I mean, without the balance.
ठीक है. See, that's where I was trying to get into that slide of, see, it depends on the role that you're applying. Okay, I would give you a very straight answer for a company like, see, things have changed a bit, but a straight cut IT company which thrives on product on services to global companies, it is going to be an average technical person with a better communication skill will be preferred, because you have to see what is the business model of that particular company. How do they make money? So if they make money by doing world class products, then of course they will want someone with a higher technical knowledge. What is there? So you have to understand how do the company actually, what is the differentiation strategy, what is there, what is that, what is that they are known for. If they are known for doing a lot of small services or support services, then it is most likely that they were looking for someone who has a better communication skills. It is also important what role you are applying for. So for instance, if you are applying for a general, like like an IT role, and you don't know whether it is going to be developer, whether it will be support, that's all decided at a later stage, then it is more likely that a communication skill is going to be preferred. If you know that you are applying in a very niche role, so that is something when you are probably having a certain amount of experience and you are applying for that particular niche role in that particular IT company, then it is going to be the other way around. So, just to summarize, in general, if the company is thriving on innovative products, then technical knowledge is going to be preferred. If the company is thriving on services, on getting clients in business, where client management is something that is going to come up in couple of years, then communication is what is going to be preferred. If the role is a generic IT company where the career path is like having a developer, then maybe support, then a manager, like that, if that is what the career path looks like, it is going to be communication skills preference towards that. If it is a niche and technical role, then it will be more towards the technical side. So that's how it is. So role and the company are the two variables which are going to decide what is more important. So you have to think when you apply on that and prepare for it.
But sir, if we have like an overall role, like They are good with both communication skills and technical skills. They'll surely have an advantage over both of the other categories, right?
Yeah, so that's what. So again, so for example, if I am looking, so for if I am recruiting for a particular role which requires an average technical skill. So what I understand, okay, if I give these two three kinds of programs, he is able to think and able to code it. So that's it. I mean, for me, that's going to be the threshold level of criteria. Anything beyond that, if it is not relevant, I will say okay. I mean, of course, if I have a tie between the two, I will take someone who is more technically sharp. But otherwise, it is not. I mean, it is not something that I'll consider it as a factor because my threshold limit is limit. The characteristics that I had written down, as I had shown in the slide, and that characteristics is met, then anything above that is something that doesn't concern me. So it doesn't work. I mean, I'm okay with it. Any one of it.
Okay, so that's quite understandable. Next question. The next question is by Vineet Anand. What rounds does Amazon conduct while recruiting freshers?
Right. So typically there will be three rounds of interviews, and before that there will be a screening round, which will just try to understand whether. So Amazon for freshers have very generic roles on operations, on IT, like that. So I will just answer it in two parts. So if it's an Amazon Development Center role, which is our IT company, which is our software cloud services company, Amazon Web Services, then it's an extensive 7 rounds of selection process. It starts with an aptitude round, it then goes to a technical round, then there is a technical interview round followed by 3-4 more rounds. So there are overall 6 to 7 rounds that a person has to go through. If it's an operational role in Amazon operations, in warehouse management, in this, then there is typically one screening round followed by 3 rounds of interview where we check behavioral and functional competencies, and then a higher call is made. So that's how it is.
I hope that answers your question, Vineet. We can have the next question up. The next question is by Karthik Rane. Hello, sir. How is a saturated field handled as far as job opportunities are concerned?
Mm, can I just say I didn't understand the question actually. What does it mean exactly?
I'm sure he's asking regarding like if a field is completely saturated, are there still job opportunities? I mean, it is saturated because of the job opportunities, right? Because there's too many job opportunities there. But what if it's already like completely saturated? Then what to do? Should we look at opportunities in different other jobs or something like that? Is that what you're trying to say, Karthik? Please type it in the chat box.
Hmm. Right. So I think in that cases, so since so see, waiting for the perfect job is not something that is recommended because see, you can always. So the first strategy should be in this case, of course, try to apply for jobs. That is something that interests you, or that is what you want to do. After that, it has to be related, so that later on, if this particular job comes up, you can at least explain to the recruiter or the company that I was waiting for this, but since this field is so saturated, I didn't want to wait. Being uh, being jobless and not trying is something that is not considered. So an year gap, as you might know, a year gap is taken very seriously in companies. So unless you have a very convincing answer, companies would not really appreciate having a gap in your year for maybe preparation of an exam, unless it's a personal tragedy and something that's a different call altogether. But other than that, it is not something that is appreciated. So you can, as long as you can still explain that I wanted to get into this field, but it was so saturated I could not get into it, so I took up something which is related to it. That is something that should be the first strategy. And if it still doesn't work, then at least you should, I mean, the student should try for something else. So that's how it is. So certain times you may have to take a call. See, I'll just give you an example. So suppose if you're a mechanical engineer, you don't want to go into an IT, and you know that getting into a company like maybe Tata Motors as an assistant manager or an engineer or production shop floor engineer or Ashok Leyland or any other automobile company is getting very difficult. The number of roles are very less, right? Then getting into an IT will be little problematic because you may not be able to explain that why you suddenly switched to IT and you completely abdicated the role of a mechanical engineer. Then the right strategy is to accept, yes, there will be a little the salaries would be little less, the job and life will be little difficult, but if that is what you want to do, then you should try in some allied industries and then try to wait for some certain good opportunities to come up in the kind of companies you really want. uh, so that's how it is. So going completely out of the field is something that is not recommended, but it is also not right to wait for the perfect job and the perfect company to come up, because that also doesn't happen.
That was very enlightening, sir. I hope Karthik, your question got answered, and we can have the next question. The next question is by Anusha Sarla. Sir, what is the role played by ETRX and EXTC engineers like from the core branch in such companies? From basically electronics and telecommunication branches.
Hmm. In which companies? I mean, I don't understand what is such. In IT companies, this that's what is the question. I-
Yeah,
Right.
that is what she's asking. Like if
So
you're
let
from
me.
electronics and telecommunication branch.
Right. So let me give you a blunt answer, Anusha. 99% of case it is the same. So there is particularly in generic, in a very generic IT companies like Wipro and TCS, uh, you will be in a myth. It is a myth if I tell you that there is a level of distinction that happens between the computer science and IT and an ECE or electronics engineer. It's there is no difference. It's the same kind of role unless there are certain specific roles. Like TCS will come with, say, that is an electronics infrastructure development kind of a role. In that case, of course, they are looking for an electronics engineer for some sort of an electronics development coding or something like that. So then it's a marriage between an electronics and a computer science. Otherwise, if it's a general role, it's a general role. A computer science at that time, basically, there is no difference. It's the same role. You will be asked the same kind of roles that a computer science engineer or any other engineer would be doing.
Okay, sir. That was very helpful. I hope Anusha, your question got answered. Next question. The next question is by Sai Krishna. What will be the situation of gig workers in the post COVID scenario and what advantages and challenges will they have to face?
Right. Yeah. So this is, I think, quite intuitive to understand. Of course, it's again we are delving into a situation of prediction, so I can always go wrong. But what looks like from here is that, and c- because of COVID, two things have happened. Companies have first understood that work can be done remotely, which they earlier had apprehensions because they had both the options. You could have asked the person to come to office and do. Uh, you can also ask them remotely. So when companies had both the options, they had a backlog, a kind of a mental blockage that probably certain kinds of works cannot be done remotely. Uh, Certain things we are still sure. For example, at Amazon, we know that since the company is still in a phase in which it is getting innovated, a lot of innovations, new things have to come, and that cannot happen unless everybody is in the same room with a marker and thinking and brainstorming. So that's very clear that certain companies are very clear that in particular work there is no role for a gig worker or something. I mean, we have to sit together and do something. But other than that, two things have happened in general. One is that this mental block that things cannot be managed remotely has gone. So companies are now more than willing to accept gig workers. So the opportunities for gig workers are only going to increase. The second thing is they have already also invested in a lot of technologies like Zoom, experimented with a lot of technologies and already expanded their networks and done a lot of investment so that work can be managed remotely. So as a result of these two things, what is most likely going to happen is the proportion of gig workers are likely to increase. The second thing is, uh, and of course companies would be more than happy to experiment on gig on them. So that's how it looks like.
Okay, so we can have the next question now. The next question is by Siddhi Bhor. What is the best way to expand the professional network? Oh, that's an interesting question.
Okay, so um, certain very straight cut legitimate answers I would give. Certain tricks also something I will give is that a good thing is also a good thing is to reach out. I think LinkedIn is by far the most kind of best professional network. Uh, I think there would be certain more for engineers. For a computer science engineer, I think there are certain sharing platforms. I'm forgetting the name, but there are certain platforms where you can actually write codes, make it open sourced, where others can see, or you can collaborate with others to create a project. So that nowadays a lot of companies are looking into those platforms, and they are constantly looking for engineers and who have coded there. So that's a good source. Second is you can always write something in LinkedIn, certain things that you feel uh, strictly in the professional front, certain things you want to share your insights, and that if people like and something, then that increases your potential. The third thing is to actually give a lot of interviews. So that's a trick thing I want to. That's not something on the books kind of a scenario, but if you give a lot of interviews, you kind of also you will meet a lot of people, and then maybe you have an opportunity to connect with them over LinkedIn, and then you also that's a way to actually improve your professional network. So not to get shying away. So occasionally, if you would not want to appear in a company's interview, you don't want to get into there, but still I would advise you just go and appear for it. So that's also some a way to a kind of a backdoor way to improve your networks overall. So fourth thing is I think
Basically, to get out there.
yeah, college alumni networks will be there. So I think ITSA would actually, if you are in touch with your friends after 3-4 years, you will only have a good network among all of you. So being in touch with your past friends and not forgetting them is also one of the good ways to expand your network.
Absolutely. So I hope that answers your question, Siddhi. We can have the next question up. The next question is by Sumant Puranik. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. So, what will be the impact of this crisis on core fields?
Right. Uh, okay, that's a complex question, and it is dependent on how we react to it, on overall as an economy, or as a government, or how we come out of this crisis. It all depends on that. One thing is pretty sure. Uh, Certain. So I think let's have a distinction between these two. So COVID has, for example, destroyed many of the industries. Generally, does that means that if you're an electrical engineer or if you're a mechanical engineer, you may not be able to work in those particular industries which are affected. Now, for example, it's hospitality is something that is tourism and hospitality that is largely affected. That is probably not also one of the areas where engineers actually go much, but uh, there are certain things that can happen as large industries because the overall slump in demand and supply. So one thing is you can still keep your trade, so it won't have a very big impact on the core field as such. It is just that you may have to apply in certain industries which are relatively unaffected, and you may not be able to apply in other industries where, so the overall the opportunities are going to shrink a little bit, but it is not going to get destroyed. I mean, it's not going to be a very adverse impact because certain industries are badly affected. You'll not get opportunities from those industries. You will have to have apply for other industries. So that is one impact that is going to have. Second, you see, overall, if the economy slumps and we are not able to bounce back much, then since the overall demand and supply decrease, companies will start investing little less. They will hire less manpower. They will maybe shut down certain businesses. The small businesses are going to come down. So that's going to happen, and in that case. you can expect that the salaries will remain low. I mean, it won't be lowered, but it won't increase also. So you can expect that there is people, the companies would be a little apprehensive. So first impact is you may have to accept a lower salary at this stage. So that is one thing that is going to happen. Second is bigger industries like, for example, Cummins, which invests in B2B technologies in the large scale. Uh, they may not find much demand, but smaller industries like consumer goods, refrigerators, those things will run. So uh, those companies which cater to uh, normal consumers, low cost consumers, are those companies are still going to be there. Maybe bigger investments will take little less time. So overall, the number of companies that you can apply to may decrease. You may expect a little hit on the salaries in the short term, but it won't be such an adverse impact that you will not be able to find any job. So that is also not going to happen.
That was very
Okay.
enlightening, sir. Next question. Next question is again by Dev Patil. Any tips to prepare for MB entrance exams?
Um, okay, it's there will be a lot of things that you can do. I would suggest you can, if you want to really prepare, you can get into a test series kind of a situation right now. If you're a little ambiguous whether you want to do or don't want to do, you want to get into a job. So I would suggest. This is an open-ended question. I can go on talking about MBA entrance exam for an hour, but in short, I would suggest that you get into a kind of a test series kind of a situation. Do a lot of mock tests. When you analyze the mock test results very well, so the thumb rule is if the test is of 70, 140 minutes, you should at least spend three times of that in analyzing that results. So you should spend 420 minutes to actually see where did you get wrong. What is the if it's a maths question, then what were you thinking while answering that question? What were the formula you applied? What formula you missed? Why did you miss it, and what conclusions it has on you, what concepts you want to practice. So that is one very interesting way. In English also, if you are once you analyze the paper, you understand your understanding of prepositions is wrong, or what is the particular thing in grammar you are weak on, why were you not able to understand the meaning of this passage, and then again go back, solves, then reduce the scope of your thing. So once you complete this test, now only focus on the smaller areas where you were not doing well, and practice that again and again, perfect that, and then give another test. Then certain new things will come out. So that's a very nice, and that's a very fast way to actually prepare for MBAs. So that's one thing I would like to talk about.
So how long does it take to prepare for MB entrance exam? Like in months?
I think 6 months is good enough. If you are more devoted, 4 months is also fine. So 4 to 6 months is an ideal time to prepare. Beyond
Okay,
that,
thank
it
you,
will
sir.
stretch. It won't help much. It'll somewhere stabilize. So after 6 months, your energy level and motivation will be somewhere at a level where it
Yeah.
won't further help. So 4 to 6 is an ideal time to prepare.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we can have the next question. Next question is by Ashish Singh. He asks, how many advantage does someone with a master's degree have over someone with only a bachelor's degree in the IT industry?
Hmm. So I will talk about from my experience, and there will be exceptions. There could be some exceptions to it, but in general, uh, in India, a successful career is kind of guaranteed by the uh, the level of your college or the engineering college. So, what kind of college you're passing out from determines your success to a large extent. That's how the industry works. It's not an ideal scenario, but that's how it works. So, because in India, try to understand the supply is tremendous. There are a lot of people passing out. So the only way they will always companies will try to do apply some shortcuts and try to find out, okay, if it's an IIT it will be like this, if it's an NIT it will be like this, if it's not, then we all know. I also have passed out from a and we know the struggle. So that's how it is. So a master degree will help if the college is strictly IIT, IISc, or maybe NIT, to some extent Triple IT Hyderabad. or certain colleges which are renowned in India, because now a lot of foreign companies like Microsoft, LinkedIn have opened their you know overall companies in India. So computer science and IT is a very promising field to get into an MTech. I would suggest you should do it from a renowned institute, because the tag of the institute is going to be very important. If the tag of the institute is not that great, honestly, it is the difference between the effort that you will give to actually complete masters. See, one thing is you are solely doing it for the pursuit of knowledge. That's then you can do it from anywhere. Then it's a perfectly fine choice. I mean, you can I mean, you are doing MTech, then maybe you are looking for a research degree. That's a perfect choice, that's a personal choice. But if you ask me whether it is going to help in the industry, it will help if the tag of the industry the college is good. That's how unfortunately the status is right now, and I would not beat around the bush to give a very complacent answer, but that's how the reality is. Yes, you should prepare for GATE. If your rank is somewhere between 100, 200, 300 in computer science, it's fantastic, you will have a very good career. If it's beyond 1000, I don't know whether the effort of doing MTech will actually pay off. That's how it is.
So actually, I want to ask like a question, like to extend this one only. Like, is it worth going and doing masters abroad, or just apply for placements and start getting into the field first?
See, I am not. I have a lot of friends who have done well. So I would not be a very nice. I would not be exactly a right person to actually throw any field on, because I have not done it. So it's not a personal experience that I can show. I don't want to bias you guys on that. Of course, there are a lot of risks. The environment is uncertain, but many of them have become very successful also. So. Uh, th- I can actually, if the organizing committee wants, I can share some of the successful people who are from my batch. They're working probably in some of them on Facebook in very renowned companies in US. They can throw a better light on how you can navigate through that process. Uh, of course, it should be loans are available, so it is not that it is going to be financially very difficult. And computer science field till now in US is pretty strong. It's pretty solid. You get the variety of jobs that are available, the accessibility you will have to bigger companies. Like the ratio of hires that Facebook will do in India compared to US would be somewhere in 1 is to 100 actually. If they hire 100 people in US, they'll probably hire one person from India. So that's how it is. So somewhere it's like that. So you will get a lot of opportunities, but whether there are risks involved also on visa and policy uncertainty. So how to balance that is something that you have to your own research on that.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. We can have our next question up. It's by Divakar Shah. What is the scope of web developer or backend developer as a fresher?
Um, I have of course, if I talk about Amazon, Amazon does hire web developers specifically. There are some other companies which do hire. I think Oracle hires developers specifically. Uh, so if you look at those roles coming up and you apply for that, it's pretty I think there are various opportunities, good opportunities in those. Other than that, in general IT companies, if I talk about, then they will not specifically hire for a web developer or something, but you can always go and take, tell your interest. So that is something that you can always do. Once you get inside, you can always say that I can want to actually work in web development or in this particular field. And I think there are plenty of opportunities in web development. That's a field where if you want to get into, you can definitely get into. There is no dearth of opportunities, I would say, in that.
I agree. So I hope, Divankar, your question got answered. We can have our next question up. Are there? Okay. The next question is, sir, how is Masters in Software Project Management?
Okay, fine. So there is a little bit of a thumb rule I want to give when you're looking for masters. I would say generic is always better than specific. So uh, a general MBA in probably information management is going to fetch you probably better results than a very specific degree in project management. Uh, because you can always specialize. So once you get into a
Oh,
job with your experience and everything, you can always specialize. There is no dearth of project managers in IT. Is always sought after. It is growing. It's very much required. There is no dearth of opportunities there in there. But given an option that if you can do an MBA in information management or an MS in information management, or in general an MS in computer science or software services, that's would be a better place to be in rather than doing something very specific on only software project management. That would be my thumb rule or my piece of advice. But there
okay,
is no,
sir.
having
Thank
said
you.
that, there is no dearth of opportunities in that area. It'll be useful.
Yes, sir. So I guess we have time for one final question. It's by Siddharth Shukla. How important is an internship in the placement scenario?
See, this scenario has changed quite a bit from the times that I have passed out. Um, See, it is always better, definitely, between the two options, that it is always better to have a good internship, a lot of things to talk about from their internship experience. And that is definitely going to add a lot of value in the interview process and in the CV. But having said that, if you do not have a very good internship experience, would it be a big and major blocker, or will it be a big disadvantage? I would say no. So I'll definitely go for internships. Having a good internships is good, but do not scratch your head if you did not have a good internship and then you are already starting for an interview. I don't. I mean, I'm that's not going to be a major blocker, and that's not going to be a reason for you. See, no company will reject you because you did not have a very good internship. They will probably not accept you because your answers were not correct, or maybe it was not a good role fitment. The kind of job that they were offering, maybe you were not a good fit of that. It'll have you of those reasons. It won't be because you didn't have a good internship experience, and that is not something that will happen.
So basically, internship is not like a set in stone kind of
No,
a
no, not at
requirement.
all. Not at all.
Okay, sir. So I think all the questions were really good, and your answers to each and
Okay.
every one of them were extremely enlightening. With this, I'll conclude the questionnaire session. My co-host Shivani would like to say a few words right now. I'll request her to come up.
Um, Thank you, sir. That was a really interesting webinar. I guess we've learned a lot of new things from this webinar. That's definitely going to help a lot of us in near future. And now that we know like the do's and the don'ts, I guess everyone's a little bit more prepped up for an interview. We learned a lot, but particularly few things that I would like to highlight were the one could pursue a career in package designing, which was like completely unknown and new to many of us. That I think. Then about the various shocks and how one should recover them. Yeah, that point was also definitely really good. Then telling us about the success mantra of life. That was insight, purpose, practice, and hope. If I am not wrong. Uh,
Yeah, I
then
will share with you. It won't be a problem, Shivani. It was not a memory test, so I will definitely
definitely.
share this.
Then and even telling us about that it's not the marks but the feedback that matters in the corporate life. I guess everyone's gonna work a little harder towards their goal to achieve a great feedback rather than marks from now on. At least the ones there in this webinar. Once again, thank you for all the insights and information you gave us. It definitely made us a lot smarter. Thank you. It was
And
really
it was
delightful.
really encouraging as well. It was really encouraging as well. And
Yeah.
on that note, I'd like to thank our viewers, our beloved audience, for staying up with us till here. And thank you, our HOD, Mrs. Dr. Rupali Vora ma'am, and our conveyor, Mr. Rohit Arve sir, who have always been supporting us and helping us take a step forward to help others in our field and always going the extra mile for our students. Thank you so much. And thank you, Itsa, for conducting this event. It was truly amazing. And the feedback form is already in the chat box, so please fill it. You will get your e-certificates there. And on that note, I hope you all enjoyed it just as much as we did. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you once again, sir, for coming us and giving us all the insights.
Thank you for inviting. I was as frank as possible, and I, I think that would help everyone.
Thank you. So Samya, what do you think? Should we tell them about the next event?
We should. I mean, if you all are not too bored already.
Yeah, are you? Okay, we can't really hear you all, but yeah, we'll continue. So,
I hope you have enough energy. Like, I hope everyone here still has a little bit more energy to go into the depth of the next event.
okay, so our next event is gonna be on the upcoming Sunday, and it's gonna be by an alumni of VIT who is currently working for an amazing company, an amazing place, and earning an amazing amount. So,
That's a lot of amazing, Shivani.
because it is amazing, right?
It totally is. I know.
Yeah. So Samya will give you the further details for it.
So next Sunday, we are going to have an alumni. Her name is Maitri Ravindra, and she got the highest placement 2 years ago. And she has been an inspiration. I mean, I have known her for a very long time. And she's currently working in Japan, earning 37.5 lakhs. And she herself wants to come here and address to our students in what was the special thing in her that got her that placement. And it's going to be an interview. And again, your questions will be welcomed and it will be amazing. So just stay with us, have enjoy, and again have an exciting, inspiring, empowering day, year, decade ahead. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I hope you all enjoyed it.
We hope so.